I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
This is where the fun begins.
Hello there.
Hello and welcome to Jedi Knights, the official Star Wars podcast for JoyClicks. I'm one of your pilots today for episode number 94. We're at 94 already. Mike Connors, and always I have my co-host Christian in the co-pilot seat. How are you today, my man?
Doing good, Mike. I'm doing very well. We got a Spider-Man trailer. It's not Star Wars, but it's the same part of my brain that gets hyped up, you know. So feeling excited today.
It really is the same part of the brain. I woke up and I almost couldn't believe my eyes, to be honest with you, when I saw that.
Yeah.
And then I watched it and I still couldn't believe my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're not here to talk about Spider-Man, though I guess
No.
we could forever, but we're here for Star Wars. And we got a lot of Star Wars news to talk about, baby, because we missed last week. So sorry to everybody. Had a glitch in the system, but we're back and we're ready to go.
Yes.
So, yeah, have you been, how have you been? It's just been a while, Christian.
Yeah, been very busy, started doing some new work, so just
Cool.
been very occupied with a lot of the techie stuff, editing and all that, but in the meantime, have I done any Star Wars things? I don't think so. There hasn't been much to do Star Wars wise lately, outside of Bad Batch, of course, but I'm definitely feeling it. You know, I'm ready for the next thing. Visions is coming up soon, so I'm ready for more Star Wars.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that probably the last 2 weeks have just been consumed by a hype for Star Wars Visions, and we'll get into that later on in the episode for sure. Honestly, I have also been consumed with, work and everything, but I recently figured out how to play Xbox, their gaming service over the cloud or whatever. And one of those games that you can play is Star Wars Battlefront 2. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't play it for that long because there's a lot of input lag with the controller and everything.
Yeah.
Kind of the experience isn't very fluid or anything. But yeah, no, I just decided to see how that would work, basically streaming it to my MacBook. It was pretty incredible, but yeah, they need to tweak it out a little bit more. But promising technology for sure. It was fun playing Star Wars like that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's very exciting. I messed with a little bit of it myself, and it's cool. You know, we're probably just slightly outside the timeline of it working as intended, but it's still really cool. So.
Oh, totally. It definitely needs some more work, but it is a very interesting technology for sure, and it's going to be the future. That's for sure. But anyways, I think we should get on to what we normally do here for JoyClicks Jedi Knights, because we've missed a whole week. We need to get straight into the action. Let's not cut any corners here. Let's do it how we always do it, starting with From the Jedi Archives, one of the very fun segments that we have here on Jedi Knights. Christian and I both go on Wikipedia, which is the online Star Wars wiki. We both choose an article and we bring it to here, this podcast, and we share it with the class and we educate one another on a piece of Star Wars lore, fiction, or canon, or otherwise. So, Christian, what'd you bring today? What's your Wikipedia article?
Forgive me if the pronunciation is off, but I brought Mithra Nuruodo.
Oh.
Are you familiar with this?
You killed it. You killed it. 100%.
You are?
Accuracy.
Oh,
no. And well, I am familiar with him, but I'm saying that you also killed the pronunciation. 100% accuracy.
Thank you. I'm a regular Chiss language expert, you know.
Of course.
So it's a fancy way to say Thrawn. So I pulled Thrawn. Mithra Nurudo, born as Kuvu Rao Nuru, with the core name Vuran, recognized in his early military career as Mithra Nuru, was better known by his core name, Thrawn, a Chiss male officer of the Chiss Ascendancy and Grand Admiral in the Imperial Navy during the Age of the Galactic Empire. So yeah, it's Thrawn. Thrawn is a valued member of the Imperial military, basically was able to rise up through the ranks despite the heavy racism or speciesism, I guess, in the Empire's ranks. We know that aliens are really not welcome in the ranks of the Empire, but Thrawn is an anomaly. Thrawn was a genius tactician, has been brought into canon since he was debuted in the Heir to the Empire trilogy of books.
Yes.
So yeah, Thrawn.
Yeah. Very cool. Yes, Thrawn notably uses the art of his opponents to sort of detect and predict like how they're going to act during war. I always thought that was very interesting. He's thinking about military in a different way. Really shows his good tactician skills, I guess, military tactician skills. I always loved how he had a super long name, but everybody just calls him Thrawn. It's much easier that way, for sure.
Yeah.
But he's a great character. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of him.
Oh, for
soon.
sure. Absolutely. What do you pick?
So I picked the Low Altitude Assault Transport Vehicle. Are you familiar with the LAAT, as it's commonly referred to?
The LAT? I feel like I've seen that before. I cannot place it, but it sounds familiar.
So this is also known as the Republic Attack Gunship. So you've definitely seen it before.
Yes.
It's like the quintessential clone, like with the bubbles on the side.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff all around. So yeah, that's its technical name, the Low Altitude Assault Transport Vehicle. It's made by Rathana Heavy Engineering. It's a gunship, a transport ship, a starfighter. You can fly it in space. And also a bomber. I think we saw that in the Clone Wars. It has the capability of dropping payloads like that. It is 17.69 meters in length. It can go 620 kilometers per hour. That's
Damn.
its maximum atmospheric speed. That's pretty freaking fast. Not really sure what the conversion is there on miles per hour, but I'm sure it's fast.
So it was in kilometers per hour?
And yeah, kilometers per hour. It's all in the metric system. I guess the people in Wikipedia don't account for us Americans.
So, out of curiosity, the only plane that I know the name of, a Boeing 747, top speed, 988 kilometers per hour.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, so I guess our in-universe Boeing 737 goes faster than the Republic attack gunship. The more you know.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I always liked the way that these ships looked, and always kind of curious what happened to them after the Republic kind of fell, because we don't really see them in the Imperial context, except for like the Bad Batch, really.
Yeah.
But I always liked how these looked. I think that it's getting a Lego set this summer, I believe. So yeah, great stuff all around.
Yeah, I love this ship. It's so cool. It's such an awesome piece of Star Wars design, and again, Tartakovsky Clone Wars, the way that they paint like the war paint on them, so it's got like the shark face and stuff, like some of the World War II planes, like very cool stuff. I love this look, and just how heavy tied it is to the clones. It's a cool ship.
Yeah, it's very iconic. George Lucas definitely knew what he was doing when he was approving that design, for sure.
Hell yeah.
All right, so we have a lot of news to get to. We have about like 2 weeks of news to go through. I'd say there's probably more TV oriented than anything else. And I'm going to start with some big news first and kind of like work my way down through the tiers, I guess. So big news first, smaller news last. The first thing that I saw, and this is really just the headline, there's really not much to it. According to Bestman Bulletin, who in the past has been known for some like pretty decent scoops. But take it with a grain of salt. They report that through their insiders, whoever that may be, at Pinecraft Studios, where they film many of the Star Wars films, that Andor has reportedly just completely wrapped filming. So that's, a pretty big deal, considering that we have been talking about this show coming out sometime in 2022. And if they're, ending filming in the summer of 2021, that gives them enough time to sort of, probably meet that deadline, or that goal rather. So I think this is good news all around. I'm sure Disney's probably put the fire under their butts to sort of like kind of get it done, because I'm sure they want to have a pretty stacked schedule for 2022 on Disney Plus. But yeah, good stuff all around, I think. What about you, Christian? You have any thoughts on Andor reportedly wrapping?
Like you said, good that it's on track. I'm very excited for this show. Love Cassian. He's like one of my favorite characters of the new era. So I'm very, very excited to explore more of him. And I hope we get some teaser this year. I know we got Disney Plus Day, right? They have announced that. That's sometime in November, like the anniversary. They're going to show off some new projects.
Oh, I totally forgot about that, honestly.
Yeah, it's a whatever thing because it's gonna have a bunch of Marvel stuff too. It's just an event that's happening in November. Yeah. But I imagine we could probably see some Star Wars stuff there. Like, do you think this is a chance to show up on that day?
I mean, totally. I think that from what I remember of them saying that was a thing, that they were going to show off some Star Wars stuff. Yeah. I would assume that, if not Andor, that like I would say like also maybe even like Kenobi. Just because we know that they've been filming it. By then they might be done. I'm sure they've already started working on like putting it together in post and everything. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I've been really personally jonesing to like see something from Kenobi, because obviously who doesn't want to see Ewan McGregor back in action? But yeah, I think it definitely has a chance of being shown at that in November. Do you?
Yeah, I think. For Kenobi, I think there's a good shot that we'll get a teaser. Like 20 seconds. Like just seeing him in his hut or something, like by a fireplace. Like I think we will see him in costume. We will see a glorified camera test, essentially, at the very least. I think it's more likely we would get a trailer for either Cassian or Mando Season 3, or maybe the first episode of Book of Boba Fett drops that day. I don't know, but I'm sure we'll see some Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting a trailer from Andor is probably something that I would probably put money on that, to be honest. I just have a feeling that out of any of the Star Wars shows that are going to be put on Disney Plus in 2022, I think Andor is probably one of the ones that's going to come out first, just because it seemed to have started production earlier than all the other ones. I don't know if you also feel the same way.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Like, I know Cassian had a few hiccups. Remember with, like, at the beginning of COVID, they had to bring on a new director because I think Tony Gilroy maybe was, like, stuck in LA or something. Like, they had some hurdles. I forget if that was the actual creative person who was trapped, but there was a bit of a stall with Cassian. But it has been in production for a while. We saw that behind-the-scenes thing almost a year ago for the, like, behind-the-scenes doc featurette. So yeah, I imagine Cassian is going to be out probably before Mando, right? Unless they hold it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's possible that they rushed Mando. Yeah. But speaking of Mando, actually, going on to the next piece of news that we have here. So speaking at an appearance at Steel City Con, which I would imagine is in Pittsburgh, right? I don't know.
Probably.
Carl Weathers, who plays Grief Karga in The Mandalorian, and has also directed, I think, one episode, season 2 of The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. He was speaking during an appearance, and he said, quote, "We're going to start a new season of The Mandalorian within the next month." This is a recent comment. Quote, "And I get to be in front of the camera again, and I get to direct again." That's what he said. So that's pretty cool. I didn't think it was really a question whether or not Carl Weathers was going to direct another episode. I kind of figured that would be the case. But it's good to sort of hear, after Giancarlo Esposito a few weeks ago made that comment that filming was going to start soon. It's good to hear from him like an actual timeline on this. They're really getting their feet moving, and they're starting to do something with Mandalorian season 3. So that's pretty hype. We get one Star Wars show wrapping filming, and so one book closes as another book opens, and we're getting more Star Wars. So this is a pretty cool thing. I'm really happy that this is actually starting to move forward. What about you, Christian?
Yeah, I think it's exciting. Like you said, no real surprise that Carl Weathers is back. I think it's cool that he's gonna hop in the director's seat again, because I liked his episode. I would put it up in the top half of my favorite episodes from that season, right? Because that was the big reveal of the Snoke test tubes. That was a cool episode with the
totally
invasion of the base and the escape. Like, I thought he handled the pace and the action really well, so excited to see him take another crack at Mandalorian. And yeah, I'm interested to see how his role evolves, you know, because he's in charge of that spaceport, and maybe he's still there. Maybe he's... Do you think he's going to be disappointed if Din rolls up without Grogu?
I think he probably would be disappointed because we know that he started to love Grogu a little bit at the end of season 2. A question that I did want to pose to you, Christian, now that we know Gina Carano is not coming back as Cara Dune, right?
Yeah.
Do you think maybe Carl... do you think maybe Carl Weathers and his character of Grief Karga, do you think that character might take on some of that screen time, maybe some of that responsibility that the writers were maybe planning on giving to Cara Dune? Maybe that has to go somewhere. Maybe they reimagine the character. I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, because I think the idea of Grief Karga being the let's say like the mayor of this spaceport, and then Cara Dune being his agent, like his marshal or whatever she was called, to enact the will of him for the people. It was an interesting dynamic, and I don't know if I could see Grief Karga step into that role, so maybe he brings in somebody else. Like, I know we've talked about maybe elevating a background character or a secondary character into the Cara Dune role. A lot of people, when it comes to Rangers, want to see Harrison Dula put in the spot of what Gina Carano's character was going to do, so like, I don't know if they'd bring Hera into the Mandalorian to work with him or anything, but yeah, I'm struggling to see Carl Weathers' Grief Karga fit into that martial role that she did and that Cobb Vanth does. You know?
Do you think that maybe he'll have like just a larger role within like what his character already is, though? Like maybe not taking on that exact responsibility, but now that Gina Carano like isn't. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here. I'm just thinking maybe we could we'll see more of Grief Karga because of that reason, unless they do elevate, you know, another character, which is possible.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. I think Grief Karga could be fit in to have sort of a, not mentorship, but like a trusted bond with Din when he's kind of out on his own and looking over his shoulder for Bo-Katan, right? Like, I think...
Yeah,
I think having him step up a little bit to sort of fill that trusted friend role that he kind of had with Cara, like Din did, but could work. Yeah, for sure.
I think they should. Who played the X-wing pilots? It was Dave Filoni and somebody else. I forget that actor's name.
Yes.
They should. Yeah. What is that guy's name? But they should definitely bring him into a bigger role. I don't know if they're going to do something with Rangers of the New Republic and that specific side character, but yeah, they should just make him the new Cara Dune.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, so if Mando season 3 is starting to film within the next month, you know, starting maybe sometime in September, when do you think we should expect sort of to see it? Now that we're getting like more concrete details on, you know, when they're actually going to start, you know, making the damn thing.
I mean, I think it depends on a lot of things, because next year I think is going to be the first. We thought it was going to be this year, but next year is going to be the first major year where we have probably overlap with a lot of shows airing on Disney Plus for originals. Like, I don't even want to know how many Marvel shows there are next year. There's probably like 6, and then there's at least 4 Star Wars shows with Andor, Kenobi, Mando, and Bad Batch, and like maybe more that we don't know about. So I think it really depends, because I feel like trying to get it out by summer would be a reach, but we know it does well in that holiday time slot. Disney likes having Star Wars stuff in that November-December range, so I would assume that's when we can probably see it, and then that big summer blockbuster thing, maybe that goes to Kenobi.
Yeah, that's possible. or maybe they're thinking about like putting Kenobi in that holiday season
Sure.
and sort of like changing where they put Mando. Sort of like, because I could see them doing that, right? If they like, honestly, Kenobi is going to be like more of like an event, I feel,
Yeah.
and the like the type of stuff that they usually release in the fall in the holiday seasons, just like historically seems to be like those bigger, like more insane, like big projects. So I could see them sort of like switching it around and being like, you know what, like this is going to be like, them thinking to themselves like, we're creating so many shows anyway, we're going to have to figure out like a new way to sort of like syndicate them on our program basically. They might be just rethinking like when they release Mando to sort of fit in these bigger things. But it's possible that it's not even going to be done by then, and they're going to have to release it sometime like in the holiday season, which is also a possibility. So I don't know. Like you said, it does have a lot of competition. It'll be interesting to see when they bring it out, and whether they're going to want to do that really like before or after like Andor, for instance. But I think they're going to probably have to have Andor be released first, just because of how the timing is shaking out for sure. But
Yeah.
what can I say?
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see.
We're huh?
We'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see. Speaking of Star Wars TV, dang, so many Star Wars TV news today. The Ahsoka show is looking for an actress to play Sabine Wren. Now, thank you, Hollywood Reporter. This is not something that they like wrote a story on or anything. It was basically like hidden in an article about the newly released What If series that Marvel's doing. And writer Aaron Couch, I guess, said that Lucasfilm sources told him, quote, now Dawson is leading a live action Ahsoka spinoff for Disney Plus, with sources saying Lucasfilm is looking for an actress to star opposite Dawson as Mandalorian warrior Sabine Wren. So this is from the Hollywood Reporter. This is like an industry rag, basically. This is as like legit as you can get.
Yeah.
So that's pretty crazy that they're going in that route. I guess it makes sense. From what we saw Ahsoka in Mandalorian season 2, she's looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn. We know from Rebels that at that point, maybe Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra are still at large, still missing. So it makes sense that Sabine Wren is coming along for the journey. So what do you think about this, Christian? Any thoughts about how this might shake out on screen?
I mean, like you mentioned already, not a huge surprise. Like, makes sense with the type of story they're looking to tell.
Yeah.
And having Ahsoka be traveling with Sabine, and like, this is probably the Rebels sequel series, right? Like, this is that follow-up that everyone was wondering about, right?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be like they got to be like trying to find Ezra or something like that, and the way to find Ezra is like finding Thrawn, basically. So
yeah, like I don't know if we have credited writers yet or anything like that, but at the very least, I feel like Filoni will probably have the most involvement from all the live action shows so far with this one, considering it is following Ahsoka and following up Rebels with all these characters, right? So like. Because I remember a while ago that was one of the rumors was there was going to be a Rebels animated follow-up, but like what would you even do in that anymore if this is the story of the Ahsoka live action show, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like it just seems the things are shifting toward just like generally towards like live action TV. You don't look past Star Wars, just look at Marvel and everything. And this is a type of story that you could see doing. I feel like I could see doing really well, like in this format, right? Could there have been like an animated sequel to Rebels? Like, yeah, and like would it make sense? Like, definitely. But it's always good to sort of like push the boundaries, I think, and sort of just like try new mediums. And we know that people love Ahsoka just from like the backdoor-esque pilot thing that happened. And yeah, so Interesting stuff. I'm kind of curious to see where that's going to happen. You know?
Yeah. Do you think they end up bringing in any more Rebels characters? Like, is Hera going to be involved, or what's up?
I think they'd have to be. You know, I think Hera would have to be involved. Um, I just think that it would make a lot of sense, and I'm really excited to see them sort of try to do this like in a different, just in a different way, in different medium. That's just where I'm coming at it with.
Yeah,
So.
because so far, Star Wars, with the exception I think Ahsoka and I guess Saw Gerrera, like, not many characters have gone animated to live action. It's been the opposite. So now, basically having an entire cast for this Ahsoka show that is mostly everybody's being pulled from animation and brought to live action. Like you said, it's really interesting to see them hopefully nail this translation, because we all think they did a really good job with Ahsoka. So if they can carry that through, that'd be awesome.
Definitely. I mean, going back to what you said as well, like Dave Filoni having a hand in this new Ahsoka show, I think you definitely have to, just because like it's kind of like his baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's his story, and like if anything, maybe like his work on The Mandalorian, like directing live action stuff, was just like training for something like this. I would be surprised if he didn't like direct a few episodes or like was like one of the main like producers on it. Like definitely. I think you would need his like vision on something like this for it to like live up to Rebels, and I don't think that they would skimp out on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, very cool. If anybody's interested in playing Sabine Wren, maybe reach out to Lucasfilm.
Yeah, they're probably
because it
hiring.
looks like that they're looking for some. Yeah, it looks like they're looking for send in a tape or something like that. I don't know. But do you think they'll have Rahu Kohli do Ezra Bridger? Or is he too annoying on Twitter?
I think he will be a droid in a series.
They'll put him in, yeah, just to spite him. He'll be like a droid. Yeah, well, interesting stuff. We'll definitely be following this as it keeps going, and we'll bring the news to you as it happens. Faux show. Anyways, moving on now. This is like probably one of the bigger parts of the TV news that we have today. We have a trailer for Star Wars Visions, everybody. Now, this is the anime rendition of just like Star Wars stories. 7 Japanese anime studios are creating their own little Star Wars stories. It looks amazing, and we finally have a trailer. This show is going to be streaming September 22nd on Disney Plus. Unclear if it's going to be like all released at once or episode by episode every week. I think it's probably going to be the latter. I'm not really sure. But it looks like we'll be getting, I think, 9 episodes. And man, Christian, this trailer looks fantastic.
It looks very good. Yeah. We talked about the sizzle thing from Anime Expo, right, with all the pitches. But seeing it in motion, like fully, not just like the little clips we got, it's very cool, because we see a lot of new stuff, and we do get some teases of like, there's an episode about Boba Fett, right? Like there's an episode with some characters we know.
Oh, totally.
So I'm excited. I think you're right, though. It's probably going to be weekly. Like, What If for Marvel is sort of in this similar sort of, hey, each week is a new thing, and that's still weekly. So yeah, I imagine based off the track record, they'll keep up the one a week.
Definitely. I think that just makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Now, question. Did you watch the Japanese version of the trailer? Or did you watch the English version of the trailer?
Oh, boy. I watched the English version. What did you watch?
Okay. I watched both. I thought honestly, like, I feel like when I watch this, I would probably want to watch the Japanese version, just like read the subtitles.
Sure.
But
weeb,
the
Mike?
English. I mean, Star Wars is turning me into a weeb.
Okay, fair.
I guess.
Fair enough.
No, honestly, like I don't really have personally. I don't really have much experience with anime, to be quite honest. Do you?
I like a lot of the superficial. Like I've seen Cowboy Bebop is my favorite show of all time, and that's an anime. So, but it's like very Western influence. Like it's space pirates basically, and like Steve Bloom is the main character. So like there's Dragon Ball, My Hero, Death Note, kind of like I've very cursory into some anime. So
Okay, so you already know way more than I do. I really don't know much. I kind of know like Studio Ghibli or whatever. That's about it.
Yeah.
I watched like a few episodes of My Hero Academia. So that's about it. That's really all I have underneath my belt. And this looks really cool.
Mike, what do you know about Attack on Titan?
Okay, wait, hold on. I've watched a few episodes of Attack on Titan, and I've watched a few episodes of My Hero Academia.
Okay.
Attack on Titan's the one with like the big naked giants, right?
Yes. Omar's been trying to get me to get into that show for a long time, and he keeps telling me like there's military vibes of like fiction military, like kind of like the Star Wars, the clone troops and stuff like that, and the Resistance. So like maybe that could work for you.
Hey, I mean, maybe. I honestly like. I have no, like, I have nothing against anime at all, and like I know a lot of people enjoy it, and more power to you. It's just not something like I personally ever got into.
Sure.
Not saying that that's something that I wouldn't be interested in getting into, but maybe it would take something like a Star Wars Visions, right, for me to sort of get used to sort of like the format and the vibe. Because I do like those movies. Like I like Spirited Away. I like My Neighbor Totoro, but those are like you said, so basic, like so basic.
Yeah, which
and
isn't a problem, like.
No,
liking the mainstream stuff is not a problem at all. We're on a Star Wars podcast right now. Like it's like
no, totally. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, I don't want people to I don't want to, like, I obviously don't come off as somebody who like knows a lot about anime, but I just want to make it clear that I don't really know much. But like I'm saying, I think Star Wars Visions may be a good way for somebody to get into that, like me. One thing I do have to say, the trailer's music did not have to go that hard.
I know.
It went super hard, and it hyped me up big time.
It was really good. Yeah. Overall, really good trailer. Visual styles, like we knew this, but each one is very distinct. It all looks really cool. I really loved the one. I think this might be the duel, maybe, like the visual styles, like it kind of looks like it's constantly in motion even when it's still, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah. Is it like the black and white-ish one?
Kind of. Like, this is a deep cut. But do you remember that episode of Rugrats where they each drew their crayon drawings to tell stories, and then the crayons were like, it looked stop motion because it was like every frame was just looked a little different, so it looked like all the lines were always moving?
Honestly, no, but okay. You sort of explained it. You explained it so well that I can picture it in my head.
Okay, yes. Okay. Well, it doesn't look like that, but it's going for a similar sort of always in motion thing, So like that one looks really good.
I love how you you explain something in so much detail, and you're like, well, it doesn't look like that at all, but it looks. No, I do have to agree with you. Like, all of them do, for the most part, look very different. And the artistic styles look very unique throughout all of them. I'm really excited for it. I am excited to talk about it here on Jedi Nights. So stay tuned, everybody, because we'll be watching those for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the trailer was pretty hype. I'll probably be watching it in Japanese. And we'll see how that goes. Yeah. I'll report back.
Yeah, for the most part, whenever I watch anime, because again, like I said, most of the ones I watch for mainstream, I'll do the dub, so English. But I've played a couple games in Japanese that are from Japan. Like I played Breath of the Wild in Japanese, and I thought that was way better than the English voice acting.
Interesting.
Yakuza is only in Japanese, so like I'm not averse to that, and I like watching foreign films, so I'll probably first episode I'll do both. I'll check the English one and then I'll watch in Japanese, and then from there I'll probably make my decision.
Yeah, I mean, from what it seems like, I don't know, the trailer, the voice acting in the English trailer seems pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure it'll be great. Because they don't really skimp out on stuff like that.
Yeah.
They want to make it as, but I'm just excited for it, man. It looks really cool. Star Wars is making me a weeb. We never thought that would happen, but here we are. It's 2021. We didn't think COVID would happen either. So,
Yeah.
well, so stay tuned, everybody. We'll be watching that for sure. But one other thing that we've been talking about a little bit here on the podcast previously, Star Wars Essential Legends collection books. We talked about it before. This is basically Del Rey publishing old Legends, non-canon Star Wars books from the past, basically with like new covers and whatnot. And we don't have any new covers to sort of like talk about in detail, but we do know that there are some new titles that will be getting this like sort of redone reboot. One of them is Darth Bane, Dynasty of Evil. Another is Darth Plagueis, which is a fan favorite book.
Mm-hmm.
Another Kenobi, which I heard is also a fan favorite book. Honestly, didn't really know much about this one.
Yeah, me either.
And X-Wing, yeah, I didn't really know about that, but Darth Plagueis I did know about. And X-Wing Wedge's Gamble. So all of these will be arriving on April 5th, 2022 with, new cover art and everything. It is really cool. We talked about it previously on the podcast. I think I'm trying to think of some of the books that had been adapted. I think like Heir to the Empire was one of them.
Rogue Squadron, I
So
think.
very cool stuff. Rogue Squadron was another one. I'm excited to see because they all have like new art and stuff. They get like artists to do new cover art for it, and it always looks really clean. So
Yeah,
I can't wait to see some of this stuff. If only I had more money, I'd be buying a lot of these.
yeah, agreed. I looked up the Kenobi book and I recognized the cover from the original one in print. And I feel like I remember hearing mixed things about it, but I feel like if they could get a really good cover art, I don't know, might cave. It's only like $16, so.
Oh, so basically, what you're saying is that you need to be sort of wooed by the cover, basically.
Yes, I will judge this book by its cover and purchase accordingly.
Well, at least you're being honest, Christian. Well, anyways, I just thought I'd shout that out because we've been talking about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Nothing really to see here. And I am not sure if this is something that we discussed pre-pod, Christian, or not, but because it is as we're recording, this is Tuesday, August 24th. I thought it would be nice to shout out that at Gamescom on August 25th at 2 p.m., Jeff Keighley, this is coming from Jeff Keighley himself, Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, the long-awaited game that I personally am very much looking forward to. We'll get a showing at Gamescom on Wednesday, August 25th at 2 p.m. So very cool. Very excited to see what they have to say for that. Hopefully we get a release date. Probably not. Christian, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Keeley usually has some good chunks to show when he has a thing to highlight. And it's been a long time since we've seen anything from this game. We've only seen footage, I think, once, maybe twice. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. And I'm hopeful that we will get a release date for this one, because I think all the games he's like saying that they're going to get a highlight from, for the most part, I believe most of them are hitting this year. Like, he also said they're showcasing that new like Ninja Turtles side-scrolling arcade game, beat 'em up. That's supposed to come out this year. I mean, we assumed about Lego Star Wars hitting this year. Saints Row is getting a reboot, and they're showing that off. I could see that be like surprised it's out in November, but yeah, I'll hold faith. I'll say we'll see a December release date maybe for this or something. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was being a little bit too facetious when I said probably not earlier. I would say, in reality, I think that I would be very surprised if we didn't get a release date for this
Yeah.
at Gamescom. I think it's just, for lack of a better phrase, it's just about time, you know.
Yeah.
And they've delayed it like multiple times, well, 2 times, I think, right? And if they're going to be showing it off at something like this, they better be ready to sort of just like put the final nail in the coffin, send that thing out, get people buying it and everything. I'm excited to see what they're going to show. I assume and hope that they'll be showing like actual gameplay from this, like how the game will actually work. Because, like you said, Christian, the only thing that we've seen is like cinematic trailers, which look great, but they only do so much for a video game that you play. So I'm very excited to see just like how this looks. I'm sure it looks amazing, and I'm sure it plays great. I just want to play it myself. Really, is what it comes down to.
Same. So hoping for a good showing.
Definitely, we'll have more to talk about that next week on Jedi Knights for sure. Anyways, I think it would be good to talk about some rumors in the Force. Take these with a grain of salt, and a good conversation topic, I think. Will John Boyega reprise his role as Finn for a Disney Plus show? So this is coming from the hashtag show. Not really sure who these guys are, but it's been making some buzz on the internet. So take this with a huge grain of salt. According to the hashtag show, J.D. Dillard and Matt Owens, who I think are tapped to write a Star Wars movie, they're refocusing that to a Disney Plus show starring Boyega as Finn. It would tell the story of a pre-First Order Finn and jump forward in time to a post-Rise of Skywalker era. John Boyega in the past, I think we've talked about this a lot, actually, just about how he said that he wouldn't want to do any reprisal of Finn without having Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams on the project with him. But J.J. does have a lot on his plate, having recently signed that big deal with Warner Brothers to do a bunch of like DC movies, I believe, like Superman movies, I think.
And he's doing the Batman show, so
right, like a bunch of stuff. So it seems like he's got a lot on his plate, but you never know. People make time for things. So yeah, do you think this would be something you're interested in? Obviously, I'm taking it with a huge grain of salt. I don't really know who the hashtag show is, but I thought it'd be a cool discussion topic because to me, Finn is one of the characters in the sequel trilogy that was kind of shafted a little bit. He deserved a bit more screen time and a bit more development in his character, I think.
Yeah, so my question is the specific pre-First Order Finn, was he not taken as a child?
He was, which is why I'm also thinking maybe that isn't necessary. Like, that doesn't make much sense. Yeah.
Like, are we doing like a young Indiana Jones thing where it's like 8-year-old, 9-year-old Finn, like Stranger Things style, on his home planet, just looking through caves and stealing from space pirate? Like, what is this? Like, pre-First Order has me questioning things. Maybe they just mean like a flashback of showing him being abducted, and the majority of it is modern day, which I could see.
Yeah.
But yeah, a show about Finn focusing on his pre-First Order stuff, I don't know if I'd be interested in that, because I don't know how much there is there,
Yeah, I think when I was reading this originally, it was more your latter impression of it. Like, it kind of just like takes a little bit of time to sort of like show Finn as a kid, and then like his abduction by the First Order from his parents, and then most of it is like what he's doing after Exegol,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it would be interesting to sort of like explore Finn and his character post Rise of Skywalker, since we know, at least J.J. Abrams has said, he is somewhat Force sensitive, so we could get Jedi Finn,
Yeah, and I'll say this: I know the most recent interview we talked about with John Boyega last summer said he'd be interested, like you said, if there were certain people involved still. I remember a long time ago he said, like, you're not going to get me on a Disney Plus show or something like that. Like, I'm not, like, you're not putting me on Disney Plus. Like, I'm not that, I'm not settling for that. But I wonder if now that he's seen the direction of some of these projects, like Kenobi, Mandalorian, even, or other stuff from Marvel that has some of the movie stars adapted to TV, like Tom Hiddleston, Elizabeth Olsen, Samuel L. Jackson. Like, maybe he's come around on the idea of doing a Disney Plus show, because I think a lot of us are on the same page with these Marvel and Star Wars projects on Disney Plus, that it's a really big benefit for character growth to having these characters explored in this medium. And I think, like you said, Finn, who was shafted in this trilogy, could absolutely use 6 hours of a television series to really like flesh out what we wanted to see from him in the trilogy. So yeah, if we can do that through a show, for sure, yeah, absolutely. Jedi Finn Origins, please.
No, literally. I mean, I think it could work really well. Like, you don't really have to even go to a young Finn. I feel like The Force Awakens did a pretty good job setting up like his character in that way, right? His backstory. And yeah, I don't really need to know much about him other than the fact that he was a stormtrooper and now he's not, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, like, I'm more interested in like, yo, he's Force sensitive? You're telling me that we're gonna have like a stormtrooper turned Jedi? Like, that sounds more interesting to me. Like,
yeah, and I think it could work as well, because like, even if I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but I think in that group of people he also said like Daisy and Oscar he wanted there too. Maybe I think he might have said that.
Perhaps.
But I think you could probably, again, make it work where if it's Finn doing his training, you don't need Daisy Ridley in the show, because you could just be like, hey, Rey told me I have to go on this mission to like go through my trials as a Padawan or something, right? So she doesn't have to be there, but she can still have a presence looming across what he's doing. And again, just because there's this idea of his origins pre-First Order, maybe this is where we explore more of Jannah, her past, right? Because she was also taken very young, so maybe we get Finn and Jannah going across the galaxy, dealing with his traumatic history of being abducted and facing that to become a Jedi, you know? Like, maybe that's his trial of getting over the life that was stolen from him, you know? And I think that could be cool.
That could be really cool, especially, you know, I hadn't even really considered it, but yeah, what you said, especially like maybe bringing in Jannah, that would sort of give that extra dimension, right? Something that was, the seeds were planted in the Rise of Skywalker, but it didn't really seem much, you know, basically after that. So very interesting stuff all around.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting stuff. I'd love to see that happen. However, that's not what's going to be happening.
No.
As far as, well, who knows? Maybe it will. But take it with a grain of salt. I'd love to see it personally.
Yeah.
But we do have, and what we can definitively say is happening, has happened, is episode 16 of The Bad Batch. So yes, the season finale that we are a week late in sort of talking about, but alas, we will be talking about it anyway. It is the episode that finishes the first season of The Bad Batch. Very interesting stuff. The name of the episode is Camino Lost, and it sort of is the second part to our final, the final sort of arc in The Bad Batch. We pick up from right where episode 1 ends. We have the Bad Batch and Crosshair, an unconscious Crosshair, sort of trying to escape Camino City, or Tapoca City rather, as it's being bombarded by the Empire. And overall, I think it was just like a very I don't want to say slow burn, but like not as action packed as the first part, and more just like deep in terms of like exploring the relationships between some of these characters, because it is basically them just sort of like walking for 20 minutes for the most part.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's been a while since I watched it. I watched it like 2 weeks ago, so my details are hazy. But yeah, Christian, do you have any just like general thoughts about it?
I mean, General thoughts. I'm with you about the vibe of the episode. I will say some of my favorite moments in Star Wars are when there's no action and it's just a lot of characters talking, right?
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Right. Yeah,
it's just it is what it is.
Yeah. But that being said, I do think that this episode as a finale was interesting. I feel like it probably would have been a bit more impactful as a big finale if these final two episodes were like a 50-minute episode, instead of being split up. Because it is a part 1 and a part 2, but I have yet to watch them back to back, and I think that might change. Sorry, there's a car outside. I think that might change maybe my view on how the season wraps up, but overall I'd say I'm pretty positive on the finale, parts 1 and 2. I think I still have my issues with season 1, but from where we leave off, I'm hopeful about a season 2 right now.
Definitely. I think we should maybe just talk about some of the main parts of this episode that sort of tie up some of the loose ends that we've been talking about previously. Like we talked about, most of it was sort of the Bad Batch and Crosshair and Omega trying to escape to Poca City as it's being bombarded. And throughout the way, they sort of like have to talk with one another and work with each other, even though they're at odds to sort of escape.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that dynamic. Crosshair sort of has to like work together with the Bad Batch so that they all survive. But, they eventually make it out of the city and sort of leave Crosshair because he doesn't want to come with them. But it does seem as though Crosshair is sort of having second guesses and second doubts about the life that he's choosing. Because as we can recall from the first part of this arc, Crosshair said that he had his inhibitor chip taken out a while ago. So a lot of the decisions that he's making, he's sort of making on his own will. And it's interesting that he's maybe sort of having those like second thoughts about it. He doesn't really act on them. He sort of lets the Bad Batch leave.
Yeah.
At the end of Camino Lost, but you can kind of see in his voice or in his face and just like his actions and what he says that he may not be as interested in the whole Empire thing as he once was. I don't know if that was just a complete misread on my part, but I think that's what they were trying to get at.
Sure, I can see that. I read it slightly differently, where his like acting, his performance, his expressions, I read more as like he just feels betrayed that like these people who he felt were his brothers are staunchly against him when he sees this as like the way of the future, But I could see it that way too, like that could lead to him maybe in season 2 reevaluating his priorities of like, yeah, I'm a soldier. How tied to a cause do I want to be? Because I was tied to a cause I believed in before, and look how that ended up. So I think there's definitely more stuff to mine and peel back with Crosshair still being around and out there for a second season. That could lead to him reevaluating all that stuff for sure. I can see that. So it's probably both, honestly, because you say that and I'm not like, that's not right, because I'm like, I can see that read on it for sure.
Yeah. Now, just like now I'm like rethinking about it, like there is that scene where sort of like he saves AZ, right? And he saves like Omega in the process as they're sort of like sinking in that sequence. Honestly, good character development for Omega too. She goes to save somebody even though it was a bad idea. So it kind of shows her own character in a very like profound way. But yeah, I don't know. Like when they were on the platform, there was a moment where I think Omega tells Crosshair that like, that the Bad Batch, like they're all family basically. And for me, like the way that I read that scene was like Crosshair. It seemed like Crosshair. That made Crosshair a little sad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if that's just like the way. I don't know if maybe it's not what they were trying to get at, but I think it does leave some open-ended questions for that a season 2 could address, and I think that it would be interesting to sort of address that question of like, does Crosshair sort of like feel betrayed by the Empire? You know, where do his loyalties like actually lie? That's a big question that I think season 2 will have to tackle with, for sure. But I think overall it was pretty cool to see them back together, working together, even though it ended up in that way. Thankfully, there were no main character deaths.
Yeah, we gotta win.
We love it.
Yeah.
We love it.
I have a quick question for you, I guess.
Yeah.
It can be through this episode, but also I guess as the season as a whole. Looking at Omega, do you think that the whole found family taking care of a child thing that we've seen in Mando, kind of in Rebels, and now in Bad Batch, do you think Omega is like growing to be a character that will be different from Ezra or Grogu could be, you know? Because I think Omega being raised by clones and being super selfless is, at least season 1, kind of different from where Ezra was. Because I feel like in season 1 of Rebels, Ezra was just like, oh yeah, being a Jedi sounds cool. I'd love to do that.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the way that I see it is, especially after this last episode, the Bad Batch throughout the whole season sort of take care of Omega, and it's a story about them sort of like figuring out how to take care of her and like, Omega sort of like learning about herself and like what her priorities are and like what her strengths and what her weaknesses are. But then at the same time, I think that this final episode kind of gives us a clue as to what like the broader story of the Bad Batch is really about. And I think it still is in that theme of like family and stuff, but I'm not really convinced that it's like all about Omega. I think Omega is supposed to just be like the counterpoint basically to Crosshair, and that the main story is really just about like what is family and like bringing Crosshair back and like having Omega like become one of them, even though she's like kind of an outsider and stuff. That's like the way that I look at it. I just think about it in like those. I'm thinking about it in like that bigger context, and I'm thinking about if that's the direction that they're trying to go with it.
Sure.
Because it seems as though Omega specifically has like a different role than like a Grogu or an Ezra, right? Or even an Ahsoka. It seems as though like she's there to sort of like be that like antithesis of Crosshair, essentially. I'm not sure if she's like, I'm not saying that she's there specifically to be an instrument of his redemption, but I think like her character being there and the way that she's being developed is basically like supposed to be like that counterpoint.
Sure.
I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm with you. I think that the future of the Bad Batch is more than just Omega, and she's kind of like that glue, right? And not to say that she's not an interesting character on her own, because I think she is, and
definitely
like where we're going with her sort of being this kind of selfless rebel in a way, like prototype, I think is different, like I mentioned, from the first impression I had of Ezra. So yeah, I'm excited to see what's next with Omega, but I think I agree with you of the scope of Bad Batch being more than just her. I think that has me a little bummed looking at season 1, because like obviously Hunter was my favorite going in. Out of the group, he's still my favorite, but I really feel like the rest of the crew did not get much growth. Like, and talking about the Bad Batch being this family unit and it's more than just Omega, like maybe it's because we had a very minimal, I'll say, introduction to the Bad Batch, but like I don't know how much that is like relevant here, but having some touchstone with them and then taking the majority of the season to flesh out Omega, the new character, like even Hunter I don't think grew that much, but like he had a lot of screen time, so compared to him, like Wrecker, Tech, and Echo. Like,
Echo, yeah.
I'm hoping we get more from them. Like, I don't know, man. How do you feel about the rest of the team? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely right. I think, like, honestly, if you look at, I think Echo kind of was the one that didn't get like as much screen time at all. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just like maybe it was because like he was like a character from a previous show, so they didn't want to spend too much time on him
Mm-hmm.
because he's kind of already gotten that development and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it just seems like the show kind of started off some of the other characters, excluding Crosshair and Omega, as like caricatures, um, and it kind of ended that way too, with not
Sure.
a lot of development. I definitely think that you're right. And part of me is like wondering like how much development do they actually need to have, right? Like at a certain point, Hunter is, just gonna be like,
Leonardo.
the tactician of them. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like honestly, yeah. Like Wrecker's just gonna be the big strong guy. Like, and at a certain level, it's like how much are we really gonna expect from that?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think it is a little bit disappointing. I'd have to agree with you that you know, they start off as caricatures, they kind of end up the same with not that much development. And at
Yeah.
that point, it's kind of like, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
Yeah. And
Uh, I think it's not necessarily impossible that they're going to get that development in a future season. But it is a little bit upsetting, definitely.
yeah, and that's I think where I'm looking for the early episodes of the next season is like, do we flesh out the team more? Is Omega gonna we're doing like a time jump, so she's a bit more naturally progressed in her abilities, and we don't have to be like continuing to teach a lot of the same lessons, right? Like if we pick up maybe 2 years after the end of the season, it's like, oh, yeah, she's older now. That progression that you saw her take in season one, she continued over those 2 years, and now she's a really core member of this team and is running off to people.
Yeah,
I don't think they'd do that, but I think that could allow for the team to feel a bit more even-footed, you know. And if that's not the case, if we continue to just focus on Omega, I'll be happy with that because I think she, like I said, she's an interesting character and I'm excited to see her grow with this group. But yeah, like I'd like to see at least one episode dedicated to each team member having some time to chew the dialogue and story, you know?
yeah, yeah. Some time to sit, some time to stew. I definitely agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean to rhyme, but I did.
Nice.
So yeah, I think that's definitely all good points. I did want to sort of point out though that the episode does end with a very interesting sequence where a few Imperial starfighters bring Nala Se into some like weird like Imperial base like built on the side of a mountain
Mm-hmm.
or something, basically saying that like the Empire has big things planned for her, that they admire her scientific talents. Cough cough, Palpatine, maybe that's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Are they getting LSA to do some Palpatine work? I don't know.
I think so. I could be wrong, but I thought I saw somebody tweet about knowing the planet. Like, I'm pretty sure that's a confirmed place, so I don't know if there's anything to
So
feed into that.
yeah, so there are some people who like are super into Star Wars Legends, who have said that this is similar to a planet. I'm trying to right now sort of figure out what planet that actually is, but in Star Wars Legends, as I can remember, this is like it sort of looks like a planet the Empire had, where they would do like scientific experiments and stuff in Legends.
Mm-hmm.
The layout and like the visual is like a tad different, I think, from what it was like sort of depicted as in Legends, but same concept, it seems, same idea. So you can almost think that it's probably the same planet, just like in canon. But I'm trying to figure out what that is right now. What do you think about that, though? Like, it's sort of like the Empire's secret scientific facility, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. It's Palpatine Snoke setup, right? Just again feeding into that
Yeah.
we made a decision between 8 and 9, and we're going to use every other project we have to justify it because it was a big leap, you know? Like,
yeah.
And Star Wars has done that in the past, right? Like, the prequels, I guess, that, well, how did Anakin killing Tusken Raiders lead to him being terrified of everything, and Padme and all that stuff in Revenge of the Sith, and then some would say big character leap, but Clone Wars was able to help flesh out that slow burn of a dark festering thing. So
I don't think it's too much of a leap.
yeah. So yeah, I imagine it's definitely setting up Snoke. I did see a theory running around recently, that the Luke we saw in The Mandalorian was actually Luke. Like Luke.
Oh, like the clone Luke?
Yeah, so do you think that this is something that's going to be brought into canon through this?
I think that's really silly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really silly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was Luke with one U. But yeah, I think honestly, they're gonna have to find a way to sort of like make Palpatine showing up in the Rise of Skywalker like have that make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if they, I don't know, the Empire kidnapping Nala Se and bringing her to like a scientific facility in the side of a mountain seems like something the Empire would do.
Sure.
I think that it's obvious that that's kind of like where they're going to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see what they do with it because they need to answer it because it doesn't really make much sense as it stands. So fill in those holes, Dave Filoni.
Do you think specifically with the Nala Se base point, do you think that gets like continued in season 2, or is this just like a greater universe thing of like, hey, this is where she went? You probably can assume what happens, and we'll have a book about this event later. But do you think that is a factor in season 2, or is this just like one of those nuggets to flesh out the world, kind of like how Snoke in the Tube and Mando was?
Oh, it's totally like going to be part of the next season for sure. I mean, I think, like, I don't know. I just think that this is the perfect opportunity for Lucasfilm to sort of like fill in the plot holes that they may have had previously. And Palpatine being resurrected in the Rise of Skywalker to me is like a pretty big plot hole that's not explained. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't think that they would sort of like end it on like the Empire like very sinisterly, and Empire like being like, we have big plans for you, you know what I mean, and then just like never do anything with it. So I think it's definitely we're gonna see some more about this, and I think it's gonna directly connect to Palpatine's final plan where he doesn't die.
The final order.
The final order, yes. Gosh.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense, doesn't it, Christian?
It does. It does. But yeah, overall, it was good. The season as a whole, it was fine. I went in very excited. Out of the two of us, I was definitely the one buzzing going into the show.
Definitely. Yep. Definitely.
I wouldn't say I'm disappointed, but I was left wanting more, and I think a second season could do that for the show. I was hoping we wouldn't deal with the season 1 Clone Wars, and I think this is better than season 1 of Clone Wars. Do not confuse that what I'm saying. I didn't think we'd be dealing with growing pains after coming right off of Clone Wars season 7. Understandable that we are. So I'm not writing off the show or anything. Like, I'm absolutely excited for season 2, and I think season 2 could be really good. My only thing is, I think they can cut down on the episode number for season 2.
Yeah, I think we had been talking about that off pod a little bit. If they had, 8 to 10 episodes, a little bit of a tighter season, it could have been a bit better. Mm-hmm. You said that you wouldn't say you're disappointed. I would say I am a little bit, to be honest with you. Just because I think that there was a lot of time that they spent sort of just like kicking the can down the road, and it was like it got to points where I started watching it and I was like, what is happening? Like,
yeah, maybe maybe I am disappointed, but that just sounds harsh because I did enjoy it. Overall,
Yeah.
like the week to week talking about it, having a new Star Wars thing every week. Like I love Star Wars, so I did like having that. But in terms of what I went in hoping for, it did not meet that really at all.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it does sound a little harsh, but I think it's fair. I mean, not just like you said, um, you know, that's not to say I didn't enjoy it because I definitely enjoyed it. I thought it was quality. It's just not really what I was expecting.
Yeah.
It wasn't really what I was hoping for. But there's always a season two. We know that for sure. That's happening in 2022. And I'm sure that because there's going to be a season two, I'm sure there'll be a season three and possibly even in season four. Who knows what they're going to do with this? And we'll be definitely seeing the Bad Batch sometime soon. It left off on a pretty interesting note. I think that they have, decent things to tell. I'd like them to get a little bit more into the foundation of the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah.
That's just the thought. Let's do that season two. But overall, I thought it was pretty good. Excited to see season two, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, that was quite the episode. We had basically enough news to cover 2 whole weeks.
Yeah.
Christian, it was a pleasure as always.
Same.
Hopefully next week we'll have some Lego Star Wars news to talk about. I'm sure we will. Do you want to take us out to sea, unless you have anything else to say?
Sure. Mike, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mike P. Connors.
Very nice. You can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at Shunt2D2, as well as here, youtube.com/joyclicks for the video version of Jedi Knights in the Jedi Knights playlist, alongside the playlist for Excelsior, our Marvel show, Gamescast, our game show, and all the other shows we do. If you want the audio version, Apple Podcast, Spotify, your service of podcasting listening that you enjoy the most. You can check it out on there.
We're everywhere, baby.
Absolutely. If you can rate a review on the platform that you like, it would be appreciated because it helps us out and takes a quick second. And it helps grow the audience and the listeners and the show. If you want to support us on the monetary level, patreon.com/joyclicks at the $1 and $5 tiers. $5 tier will give you producer credit on this show and every show, like Aaron Easton and Charles Applin. So thank you very much. And that is it for episode 94 of Jedi Knights. We'll be back next week with, hopefully, like you said, Mike, some Lego Star Wars news. And you know what? We're getting close to September. Maybe it's time for a Book of Boba Fett trailer.
You know what? I'm smelling blood in the water, Christian. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
Hell yeah. Well, until then, we're fine. Everything's fine. How are you?
May the Force be with you.
Oh, yes, you're right. Beep is up.